If you identify as an empath, you probably spent years wondering why your life feels like such an emotional roller coaster. But here's the truth. Your life isn't just a series of random, painful events. You aren't unlucky in love or too sensitive for this world by accident. You are actually going through a programmed evolution, a spiritual roadmap designed to move you from weakness to absolute power. Most people will get stuck in the cycle of being a victim, constantly drained by others and staying stuck in the same toxic patterns for decades. They never realize that there's a specific path that leads from being a victim of your own kindness to becoming a true master of your reality. Understanding this process is the difference between living as a doormat and living as a powerhouse. You are being pushed to evolve, and today I'm going to show you exactly how to navigate that shift so you never feel drained again. If you're ready to stop being the emotional sponge and start claiming your authority, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our community of empowered empaths. We are diving deep into the 3 phases of the empath's journey that explain your past and your present. But pay close attention because there is a hidden 4th stage, one that almost nobody talks about, that changes everything you thought you knew about your gifts. You won't want to miss how that final phase flips the script on your entire life. Phase 1 is where it all begins, and it is known as the martyr phase. This is the stage where you are operating as a people-pleasing trap, often without even realizing it. In this beginning stage, your heart is wide open, and you love without any boundaries, limits, or caution. You are bold, brave, and incredibly innocent, moving through the world with a genuine desire to help everyone you meet. On the surface, it looks like pure kindness, but if you look closer, you'll see that this behavior is actually driven by a deep-seated, hidden fear of abandonment and rejection. You aren't just being nice, you are performing for your survival. You believe that if you aren't constantly useful, or if you aren't the one holding everything together, people will eventually realize you aren't worth keeping around and leave you behind. This trap usually starts long before you become an adult. Most empaths in this phase were parentified as children, meaning you were forced to take on the emotional well-being of your parents or siblings before you were ready. You were conditioned to be a caretaker, and you learned very early on that your value is tied to how much you can do for others. Because of this, you naturally put everyone else's needs, priorities, and crises ahead of your own. You have become a professional at making yourself small so that others can feel big. You've likely forgotten who you actually are because you've spent your entire life being whoever everyone else needed you to be. You come last every single time, and while you're busy being the reliable one, your own soul is slowly disappearing. The most dangerous part of phase 1 is that you don't just feel other people's pain, you feel a physical and emotional need to fix it. When someone near you is hurting, you take that energy on like it's your own, and it feels like a heavy weight you have to carry until the problem is solved. This makes you the ultimate magnet for narcissists and energy vampires who are looking for someone to take responsibility for their messes. This is the official birth of codependency. You become addicted to being the savior, and they become addicted to being saved. You are terrified that if you stop giving, if you say no, or if you finally set a boundary, the people in your life will reject you. The anxiety of being found out as someone who has their own needs is so high that you'd rather be exhausted and exploited than be alone. The ultimate irony of the martyr phase is that while you are working overtime to make sure nobody else rejects you, you are actively rejecting yourself every single day. You are abandoning your own health, your own peace, and your own dreams just to keep the peace for people who wouldn't do the same for you. You are living in a state of self-betrayal, where you say yes to others while your inner voice is screaming no. You think you're being a good person, but you're actually operating out of a wound that tells you that you aren't enough just as you are. This stage can last for years, and it is usually filled with a lot of sorrow and silent resentment. You keep waiting for someone to give back to you the way you give to them, but in this phase, that rarely happens. It is a cycle of giving until you are empty, only to find more to give because you're too scared to see what happens when you finally stop. Phase 2 is known as the dark night of the soul, and it is important to understand that this isn't just a rough patch or a bad week. This is a total system crash. Everything you thought you knew about yourself, your relationships, and your purpose begins to crumble. It is characterized by a heavy, soul-crushing depression that feels like a thick fog you can't escape. During this time, you often find yourself forced into isolation. You lose interest in the social gatherings and the rescue missions that used to consume your time. This happens because your old way of living simply does not work anymore. The operating system you've been using since childhood, the one that told you to be a people pleaser and a martyr, has finally hit a fatal error. You are emotionally, mentally, and spiritually exhausted, and your soul is essentially forcing you to sit down and face the music. As you sit in this darkness, a massive realization starts to take hold. You begin to see that your empathy was never the curse you thought it was. For years, you probably blamed your sensitivity for your pain, thinking you were just too soft for this world. But in phase 2, the mask falls off, and you realize the real problem was your complete lack of self-worth. You start to see the shadow parts of yourself, the hidden reasons why you allowed people to treat you like a doormat. You realize that you weren't just being nice, you were being a martyr to avoid the pain of your own wounds. This discovery is incredibly painful because it forces you to take responsibility for your own life. You start questioning every single belief you've ever held about what it means to be a good person. You begin to see that many of your kind acts were actually just desperate attempts to feel safe or loved. This is the famous "truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off" stage. You're going to feel a lot of anger. You'll be angry at the people who took advantage of you, but even more so, you'll be angry at yourself for allowing it to happen for so long. You're no longer a blind servant to others, and you've stopped answering every 2 a.m. crisis call from toxic friends. But you aren't exactly happy yet either. You are in a void period. You've let go of the old version of yourself, but the new, empowered version hasn't fully arrived yet. You're still heavy with the darkness of everything you've uncovered about your past, your family dynamics, and the narcissists you've let into your inner circle. It's a period of deep mourning for the life you thought you had and the person you thought you were. Everything that used to give you a sense of purpose is now being scrutinized and picked apart. You might look functional on the outside, you're still going to work and paying bills, but inside, you're installing a completely new operating system. This is a time of extreme uncertainty and doubt. You wonder if you'll ever feel light again, or if you've just become a bitter person. But this scrutiny is necessary. It's like clearing out a house that has been filled with trash for decades. You have to see the mess before you can clean it. This is why most people finally reach out for professional help, therapy, or coaching during this phase. The "who am I" question becomes so loud and so heavy that you can no longer ignore it. You realize you can't go back to the way things were, but you don't know how to move forward. And this desperation is exactly what prepares you for the breakthrough of Phase 3. Phase 3 is known as empowerment, and this is the moment where you finally reclaim the self that you lost during your years of people-pleasing. After the wreckage of the dark night, you emerge with a clarity that changes the way you interact with the world forever. The biggest shift in this phase is your understanding of boundaries. For the first time, you finally realize what a boundary actually is. Most people think a boundary is a wall you build to tell other people what to do or how to behave. But in this stage, you realize that is impossible. You can't control others. Instead, you learn that a boundary is a standard you set for yourself. It is an internal line that determines what you will and will not tolerate in your space. It isn't about being mean or controlling. It is about self-respect. When you respect yourself deeply, it becomes impossible for others to disrespect you because you simply stop participating in any dynamic that doesn't honor your worth. In this stage, your internal dialogue shifts from a place of victimhood to a place of absolute accountability. You stop saying things like, "they betrayed me," or "they broke my heart," and you start having the radical honesty to say, "I betrayed myself by staying when I knew better." You realize that no one can abandon you or reject you if you haven't already abandoned and rejected yourself. This realization is incredibly powerful because it puts the remote control of your life back in your hands. You stop looking at the narcissists and the takers in your life as monsters who destroyed you, and you start seeing them as teachers who showed you exactly where your self-worth was lacking. You no longer blame the world for your pain. You realize that you were the one who left the door open, and now you are the one who has the power to lock it. Because of this shift, you are no longer exploitable. The old tricks that energy vampires used to play on you, the guilt trips, the fake emergencies, the emotional manipulation, simply don't work anymore. You can see them coming from a mile away. However, you haven't become a cold-hearted, bitter hermit who hates people. Instead, you have found the middle path. You have moved away from the extreme of being a doormat, but you haven't swung to the other extreme of being a stone-cold wall. You are grounded, centered, and still very much an empath. The difference is that you are now compassionate without being a sacrifice. You can help someone without losing yourself in the process. You can listen to a friend's problems without taking that heavy energy home and letting it ruin your night. You are helpful, but you are no longer a fixer who tries to save people from their own lessons. This phase is where life finally starts to feel peaceful and balanced. You move through your day with a sense of quiet authority. You don't need to yell or fight to be heard. Your presence alone communicates that you are a person of value. You stop seeking perfection and you stop seeking pain. You are rooted in your own skin. For many empaths, this is the final destination. They stay here for the rest of their lives, enjoying healthy relationships, a stable career, and a sense of internal calm that they never thought was possible. It is a beautiful, blissful place to be. But as you are standing in this new power, you might start to notice a strange feeling, a subtle whisper that there is still something more. You've handled your personal trauma, but you might feel like your gifts are being called towards something much bigger than just your own life. Phase 4 is known as transcendence, and it is the stage of the silent master. This is a level of existence that is rarely discussed in mainstream circles because it is almost impossible to teach. It is something that can only be experienced once you have fully integrated the lessons of the first 3 phases. Beyond the feeling of being empowered, there's a shift that moves you from a life of doing to a life of being. In the previous stages, you were still striving, still working hard to set boundaries, and still trying to navigate the world. But in phase 4, you stop striving, you stop fighting, you stop trying to force things to happen. Instead, you start vibrating at a completely different frequency. You realize that your presence is actually more powerful than your actions. You move into a state of non-doing, where you are so grounded in your own energy that you no longer need to explain yourself, defend yourself, or even speak to have a massive impact on the world around you. At this level of mastery, your entire perspective on your life's mission undergoes a radical transformation. In the past, you thought your job as an empath was to save individuals, to heal the broken, or to be the shoulder everyone cried on. Now you realize that your true mission isn't to save people one by one. It is to hold a higher vibration that shifts the collective energy of everyone you encounter. You become what is known as a void. This doesn't mean you are empty. It means you have become a person who can transmute negativity into neutral or positive energy just by standing in a room. When you walk into a space filled with tension or anger, you don't absorb it like you did in phase 1. Instead, the negativity hits your energetic field and simply dissolves. You become a walking sanctuary. People might feel a sudden sense of peace or clarity when they are near you, and they won't even know why. You aren't doing anything to them. You are simply being yourself. In phase 4, the constant human search for meaning finally comes to an end. You aren't seeking meaning anymore because you have realized that you are the meaning. You no longer look for external validation, spiritual signs, or a purpose to justify your existence. You understand that your existence itself is the purpose. This is the stage where you move out of the 3D world of survival, competition, and scarcity and into a higher dimension of consciousness. While everyone else is stuck in survival mode, worrying about what others think or fighting for control, you are living in a state of internal peace that is unshakable. Your external reality begins to reflect this internal stillness. Challenges and problems still exist, but they no longer touch your core. You handle them with a no response or a calm, decisive action that is devoid of emotional drama. This level of transcendence changes your physical and cellular structure. Because you have done the deep emotional and spiritual healing, your nervous system is no longer wired for stress. It is wired for peace. You transmit an energy that is sacred and rare. You might find that you speak less, but when you do, your words carry weight. You might find that you spend more time in silence, but you never feel lonely. You are living in between worlds, fully present in the physical world, but deeply rooted in a spiritual reality that most people haven't even glimpsed yet. This is the ultimate destination for the empath. It is a life of effortless manifestation, total oneness with the universe, and a quiet, powerful authority that changes the world simply by existing within it. You have moved beyond the struggle, and you have finally come home to the true divine version of yourself. Reaching these final stages of the empath's journey is not a matter of luck. It is the direct result of having the courage to face your shadows and reclaim your power. Whether you are currently trapped in the martyr phase, navigating the darkness of the soul, or standing firmly in your empowerment, know that every challenge you faced was designed to build the version of you that is currently waking up. You were never meant to be a victim of your gifts, and you were never meant to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You are evolving into a master of energy, and the peace you are seeking is already waiting for you on the other side of your self-respect. If this breakdown helped you understand your path and gave you the clarity you needed to move forward, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We are building a community of empaths who are done with being drained and are ready to step into their true authority. And I would love to have you as part of that journey. Also, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let me know which phase you feel you are currently in. Reading your experiences helps others realize they aren't alone, and it's how we begin to shift the collective together. Stay grounded, stay empowered, and remember that your energy is sacred. I'll see you in the next video.